I am the attorney for the City of Fort Lauderdale Nuisance Abatement Board. This meeting that is being conducted here and tonight by way of Zoom is the October meeting for the Nuisance Abatement Board. I have some matters that I wish to go over in a few moments, but before we get into that, I'm going to ask that the meeting be called to order. And for that, I turn to Mr. Foreman, who will be the chair for tonight's meeting as the longest standing member of this board.
Thanks so much, Bruce. It's been a little bit since we've seen everybody, so glad everybody's here. So let's go ahead. Detective, do we want to start with the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, I will. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Detective. Bridget, do we want to go ahead and call the roll there?
I'm going to ask for each of the members. Well, Bridget, go ahead and call the roll, and I would like each of them to introduce themselves after the roll has been called.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jolly. Joel Slotnick.
Here.
Glenn Lindsay.
Here.
Robert Fanuth.
Here.
Howard Elfman.
Here.
And presiding chair, John Foreman.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Bruce.
Bridget, have the witnesses all signed in? I don't know how they could have. I just realized that.
No, and no, I see people's names, pictures that I don't recognize, so I'm assuming they're witnesses. But no, I haven't sworn anyone in yet.
Here's the way we're going to handle that. As each witness is introduced,
okay,
they will announce their name, their capacity or representational capacity as it relates to the property, and their address for future content. However, I would ask that each witness, those that intend to testify, other than the law enforcement officers, introduce themselves at this time and their capacity for being here. That would be Mr. Solnick. You need a, yeah. And what is what's your relationship to any property before this proceeding?
Hello, Mr. Jolly. Thank you for having me here today. Thank you, everybody. I do represent the Summer Lakes Homeowners Association. Which
That's
is
the condo?
It's a homeowners association, Mr. Jolly.
Okay. And Mr. Colangelo, your relationship?
He needs to unmute. Yeah.
You're on mute, sir.
He needs to unmute. We need to give him a message somehow. You can type it in the box, maybe.
Zach, we can't hear you.
Mr. Colangelo, what you might need to do is switch the output for where your microphone is feeding from. Just click on that and it should go to your.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
There we go.
Okay, perfect. I apologize for that, everybody. My name is Zach Colangelo. I represent the owners of the property located at 3031 West Commercial Boulevard in Fort Lauderdale.
It seemed to me there was one more witness. I don't see her listed anymore on the screen, so we'll move on. If and when she testifies, I'll have her identify herself.
Oh, yeah. I don't see anybody. Okay.
Oh, it was the court reporter. Fair enough.
My court reporter may have just joined. I believe she's here for me.
Bridget.
Yes, I've been here. Hello. Hi.
Hi. Bridget, did we swear the witnesses?
No, sir.
Would you be kind enough to swear in those that just identified themselves?
Mr. Solnick and Mr. Colangelo, I need you to raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely.
I do.
Thank you.
All right, I need to read a statement for purposes of proceeding by electronically like this. As I indicated, this is the Nuisance Abatement Board hearings for the month of October 2020. And frankly, it's the first meeting we've had since I want to say March.
That's correct.
Anyway, due to the demands of the COVID virus, Governor DeSantis has authorized that municipal boards, advisory and disciplinary boards such as this are permitted to meet electronically. The thinking being this will encourage individuals who perceive themselves at risk to stay home. It limits the number of large gatherings that occur, and therefore, until further notice, meetings such as this are permitted to occur electronically, but in this instance, by way of Zoom. And this will be continuing until further notice from the governor. I wanted to make a statement before we go any further, especially for those of you that are new members. This is the Nuisance Abatement Board, and historically, typically, the board hears matters brought to it by the Fort Lauderdale Police Department relating to statutory as well as ordinance violations, the nuisance abatement statute and ordinance that the City Commission passed years ago. And essentially, generally, what is presented to you as board members are cases that involve properties where there have been 2 or more occasions of either drug-related activity, prostitution-related activity, or gang-related activity during a prescribed period. It varies depending on the violation. And when that occurs, the property is brought before you all as board members to make a determination of whether the statutory definition of public nuisance has been met, and if so, what remedial action you as a board determine is appropriate for the property owners to take, upon violation of which, should that not occur, further remedial action can be ordered. It's a quasi-judicial board, and by that I mean the evidence which is presented is the strict rules of evidence do not apply, but and hearsay is admissible. And generally, the determination that you as board members make upon motion, which motion has to be in the positive, we'll go over that later, where the motion makes a determination that the nuisance does exist, that the violations have occurred as alleged, and then you as a board makes recommendations for further action, usually based upon suggestions from the city. Obviously, the owners of the property who have been noticed to come here have the right to participate, the right to call witnesses. That's all a part of the due process which the board affords, which these proceedings afford. I'm basically here to answer questions that you may have, but you all are the determiners of fact and the deciders of what action is to be taken. So that's basically how this goes forward. Now, next month, the board will elect its officers. We decided not to do that tonight because you all are going to be introducing yourselves, participating in the hearing for the first time, with the exception of a couple of you who have attended hearings like this before, participated. So tonight, Mr. Foreman has been the temporary chair. He will run the meeting, and with that, I turn the matter back over to you, Mr. Foreman, to initiate the proceeding.
Thank you so much, Bruce. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and approve the last meeting's minutes, which was back in March 12th, 2020. If you all had a chance to review that, could I get a motion to approve? And then I need a second as well.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Great. All right. A motion to approve, and we're good to go. So I guess let's move to the next item here, which is going to be the cases. So the first case.
Well, John, I think
yes.
we have a motion and approval, and now we just need them to.
Excuse
me.
And
yes, so let's go ahead and take the roll. You're right. Yep.
And well, I actually I don't recall who made the second.
I think it was Mr.
I made the second, Glenn Lindsay.
Glenn, okay.
Oh, thank you so much.
As I understand it, we need the cameras on for roll call.
I think only for the participants, not for the witnesses.
Right, but are the participants all on?
Yeah, I think so. Who's not on?
I think now they are. Well, even John wasn't on before, but we're good now.
Fair enough.
Do I need to do a roll call?
I think you can do it by voice vote.
Yes.
So all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed say nay.
Motion passes.
Mr. Foreman,
yes.
excuse me for one moment. Mr. Jolly, do you need to swear in or have the new members take an oath?
Of course I do. That was my mistake. I thought I'd done it. Obviously I didn't.
No, that was Joyce's credit.
Do you administer the oath or do you want me to?
I have never done it.
Okay. Would each of you new members, and that will be Joel, Glenn, Robert, and Howard, raise your right hand. Do you swear that you will fully and faithfully perform your duties as a nuisance abatement hearing examiner to the best of your ability?
I will.
Yes.
Yes.
I do.
Boy, that was some oath. Okay, guys. release the property from jurisdiction.
Yep. So can we get a motion to release 1500 Northwest 6th Street from jurisdiction?
I so move.
And we need a second.
I second.
Great. And now do we need to call the vote in there, Madam Secretary?
Sure.
Do a roll call.
Absolutely. Mr. Slotnick? You probably muted.
Joe?
I approve.
Thank you. Mr. Lindsay?
Approve.
Mr. Fanouth?
Wait, is the response, is it yay or nay? I'm sorry, the brain.
Yes.
It's yes, no, approve, do not approve. Ultimately, words are less important.
Got it. Approve for release.
Thank you. Mr. Elfman?
Yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Foreman?
Approved.
That is unanimous. Thank you.
By the way, I did not hear who seconded the motion. Bridget, did you get that?
Yes, it was Mr. Fanouth.
Oh, I said my name, Fanouf, but yeah, it's just Fanouf.
Oh gosh, I'm so glad you corrected me. Fanouth?
Fanouf.
Fanouf.
Fanouf. Fanouf. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Or perhaps Robert, but that's not.
I thought it was Fanouth myself, but okay.
All right.
Any further discussion there? If not,
Nope.
we'll move on to the next case of the evening, which is case number 200902, 3031 West Commercial Boulevard, Hometowne Studio Hotel. Detective, go ahead and take it away on the evidence there.
Thank you. Mao, can we go to the next slide, please? 3031 West Commercial, Hometowne Studios. Okay, thank you. Okay, this property is before the board for an evidentiary hearing tonight. The owner of this property is WCLV LLC. I have been in contact with Mr. Dennis Sitcher. He is the Regional Director of Operations for the hotel, and Mr. Rob Powell, who is the District Manager of the hotel for several months now. They have informed me of several recent improvements at the hotel, including upgrading the camera system, where they basically have now a 360 view of the property. Also improving the lights on the property. They have applied to the city for construction of an electric gate at the front entrance of the hotel, based on code requirement necessary. But due to the COVID pandemic, their request has been delayed several months now. I have been advised that construction should begin within the next 45 days. I also met with the general manager of the hotel, Mr. Tariq Khan, who was very cooperative and stated he would be happy to work with the Fort Lauderdale Police Department to improve conditions at the property. I also have been in contact with the hotel attorney, Mr. Zach Colangelo, who is here tonight, on several occasions during the last week. And again, he is participating in tonight's meeting. Before we go over the facts of the case, I want to know, well, I'm sorry, I know I spoke with attorney Don Lingerie, who spoke with Mr. Colangelo, and the property owner advised that they will stipulate to the police recommendations for this property. So as of the facts of the case, we can go to the next slide, please. I'm sorry, you have it here. I'm sorry.
Hey, Paul, let me interrupt.
Yes.
Does that also include a stipulation that the property is a nuisance as defined?
That's correct. as defined under the statute, correct?
I would like to clarify that. I had a conversation with both Detective Maniotis and Mr. Laundere about this. We stipulate to the existence of the charges. I was under the impression that we would not have to stipulate that we are a nuisance as defined. We stipulate to the existence of the incidents as asserted by Detective Maniotis. But I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, it's not a question of interrupting. The record should be clear as to what is going before the board. The board's jurisdiction is predicated upon a determination of nuisance. It either stipulated to or it has to be proven.
We do not contest we do not intend to contest the assertion, but I at the moment don't have authority to stipulate to the existence of the nuisance.
Bruce.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, make sure you can hear me. I'm not sure how it's going with this.
I can.
So what I have told them and what I understand to be true is they are stipulating today that the nuisance charges happened on their property as stated by Mr. Detective Maniotis. And we are accepting jurisdiction of this property because of that.
I know what to do.
Okay, thank you.
If they're admitting the facts, if they're conceding the facts, what it means is that the board, based upon the admission of facts, assuming it chooses to do this, will make a determination whether they admit the magic words or not that the property, that a nuisance occurred.
And
yes, sir. That was my
work.
understanding.
Sometimes words make a big difference in our business. So I will say that
I get it.
That is what I told him, and that is what I know to be true.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
I appreciate that, Mr. Jolly. Thank you, and as well, you as well, Mr. Laundere. Thank you very much.
I love the fact you got my name right. It's so crazy.
I try to do my best. I appreciate that.
I think I helped them a little bit, Don. Okay.
He
All right,
did.
can we, Mr. Jolly, we can go to facts of the case now, correct?
Please.
Okay, thank you. Again, police-related activities since January 1st, 2020 totaled 232, with 7 being nuisance-related. On August 13th, 2020, there was an aggravated battery involving a firearm. On August 26, 2020, $20 worth of crack cocaine was purchased using a confidential informant. Next slide, please, Mao. August 27, 2020, another crack cocaine was purchased using a confidential informant. On the same day, August 27th, 2020, a search warrant was conducted. The Fort Lauderdale Police Detective is also available tonight in this meeting. And I have photos for the hotel, for the board. So the first slide here, obviously, is the front of the hotel. Next. This is the very front entrance where the office is in the front of the hotel. Now, I want you to leave this slide here for a minute. Based on the construction that's going to be done regarding a fence, and it's high, obviously I don't have a pointer, I can't point to it, but on both sides of that parking lot, we're going to have a fence on both sides. Thank you very much, Mao. On both sides. In other words, this is going to prevent vehicles from just driving in unless they have keys to stay in there or any information as far as being able to be at the property. So I think that's going to be a huge help to stop the outside public just driving into the lot. And again, I'm hoping that helps a lot. And in the meantime, while the fence is being constructed, they're going to have a security officer at the front IDing people as they come in. So I think that's a good step. All right, next slide. Again, that's the front office right there. Next slide. And next one. Okay, this is the rear of the hotel. This is pointing eastbound. Next slide. And again, this is pointing westbound in the back parking lot area. Next slide. Okay, thank you. I'm going to go over the police recommendations for this hotel. Number one, the owner, and again, they have stipulated to these particular recommendations. Number one, the owner will file a no trespass affidavit with the Fort Lauderdale Police Department and post no trespassing signs on the property within 14 days and thereafter enforcing trespassing laws. They already have trespass signs up, so number one has already been taken care of. Number two, the owner will clearly display within 14 days and for the duration of the jurisdiction 2 signs measuring 16 by 20 stating that the property is under the jurisdiction of the Nuisance Abatement Board and is being monitored by the Fort Lauderdale Police Department. I will be the one asking them to place them where I want that to be done. And I'm going to put this up in front of my screen here, and I'm hoping the light doesn't block what the sign is going to look like. Okay.
Great.
Number three, $1,528.01. This cost will be held in abeyance at this time. And the reason I'm holding in abeyance at this time is because of the cooperation that I'm getting from the hotel. Number 9, if any of the above listed items are not complied with within the time frame set forth, a fine in the amount of $250 per day per item, not to exceed $250 per day, will be imposed for each day of non-compliance. Number 10, the owner or representative of the property will appear before the Nuisance Abatement Board at the November 12, 2020 meeting and all scheduled Nuisance Abatement Board meetings for the duration of jurisdiction, unless notified by the investigative detective. And finally, number 11, the notice of the Nuisance Abatement Board will retain jurisdiction over the property for a period of 1 year from the date of this order. I also wanted to clarify that I received a phone call yesterday from the district director, Mr. Dennis Sitcher. He advised to me that they are looking now for a uniformed police officer to work a detail at this property. So I guess we're going to work on getting that implemented, having a detail there, which I think is going to make a tremendous difference at this property. That's pretty much it. Mr. Chair, I just want to put that in front of the board here and like to see if we can have a vote.
Mr. Foreman, may I be heard briefly?
Yes, go ahead, Bruce.
Mr. Colangelo, you have heard the violations as alleged and the facts, the proposal for action to be taken, do you agree, on behalf of the corporation, on behalf of the hotel, does it accept the statement of facts?
It does.
And can you represent to the board that the recommendations which Mr. Maniatis, which the detective made, are acceptable to the corporation?
I can represent that we stipulate to those recommendations. We will comply with those 11 recommendations, and we are, as Mr. Maniatis let everybody know, we're working to go above and beyond that. We're in the process of putting in a gate, and we're also looking into retaining an off-duty police officer to be on premises. So we are taking this seriously, and yes.
Mr. Chair, based upon that, the matter is ripe for the board to consider a motion to approve or to make a finding that the property is a nuisance as defined, and then a second motion, assuming that first motion is passed, a second motion approving the recommendations.
So I think at this time, if there are any questions by anybody, we can ask that just before we get into the voting. Does anybody have any questions for the detective before?
I do
Yes,
have
go
a
ahead.
question. Looking at the property from the front, I know you recommended a gate so cars can't drive through, but what's to stop the people walking through in the front? It's way open there. So a gate will stop a car, but it won't stop people from walking through there just at will.
That's true. That's absolutely true. But again, based on the prior shooting that we had there and the prior shooting before, it was definitely determined that the vehicle that came in was the one involved in the shooting. So, I mean, at least we have somewhere where we're starting to get it fixed. And now having a detail officer there, hopefully that's going to make a big difference.
Okay, thank you.
I also have a couple questions.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you. One, Detective Maniatis, if there's non-compliance pursuant to paragraph 9 of the recommendations, would the full costs set forth in paragraph 8 be assessed in addition to any sort of fine?
That is correct, because it would be in non-compliance at that time.
Okay. And then my other issue, I know Mr. Solnick, I believe, appeared as a witness. I didn't know if we were going to be hearing from him prior to a vote on this.
I would appreciate that.
You wish to be heard, Mr. Solnick?
I do, sir, Mr. Jolly.
Okay, on the very limited issues remaining before the board, please proceed. Mr. Foreman, I'm recommending that you allow Mr. Solnick to speak. If it goes beyond what the board can reasonably consider, I will tell you accordingly.
Thank you.
I'm not really
Bruce.
sure. I'm just new to this procedure, so I'm not really sure exactly the scope. But I'm going to do the best because I can, and if I do go beyond that scope, I'm sorry, but I think this is such an important issue, important to the citizens of Fort Lauderdale, in addition to the client that I represent. For the last few years, as you know, this hotel has been a haven for prostitution, drug dealing, and repeated criminal activity. And in fact, when I'm told by an employee of Homeland Security, who actually happens to be a resident of Summer Lakes, it's a distribution center for dealing drugs. In addition to the repeated arguing and loud noises and fighting present on the property, we have a substantial threat of death and severe bodily harm to the risk to the community, and especially the residents of Summer Lakes. In fact, when this criminal activity is taking place, and most recently on August 12, 2012, there was kids swimming in the pool right next door, and there was gunshots there. Any one of those kids could have been hit with those gunshots and killed. Over the past couple of years, there's been about 6 shootings that have taken place on the property. And in fact, 2 residents, Gwen McPherson and Sabrina Presley, had bullets come right through their windows right next door, almost killing Gwen McPherson and her kids. We actually had an evidentiary hearing yesterday before the Judge Levinson, and we presented those pictures. I have actually uploaded them to you, and I can show you them as well. But it came very close.
I'm sorry, you have a concurrent civil case right now in front of a civil judge for civil liability against the hotel?
I do, and we actually are seeking to abate a nuisance, and we're seeking damages against them. Yes.
Are you the opposing counsel to Mr. Colangelo in that case?
He is. He's the opposing.
I just want to be clear. You guys are opposing counsel in a civil case, and then you're also in front of the board right now on this.
Yep.
Understood. I just want to know that who.
Absolutely. We had an evidentiary hearing yesterday before Judge Levinson, and Judge Levinson, some of the things that Detective Maniatis stated there, the judge did recommend, and I can go through that. It's undisputed the shots came from the hotel. It can't be.
I object to that.
The officers in Fort Lauderdale.
This is not a civil hearing. I object to much of what you're saying. I disagree with much of what you're saying.
I appreciate your concerns, and Mr. Stolnick, I certainly appreciate your concerns and the concerns of your client. I will tell you at this point, given the statutory powers that this board has, that these factual recitations add little to what the recommendations would have been accepted. It doesn't contribute much, except to, I would suggest, perhaps prolong the decision by this board. It isn't going to take, historically, the board has not taken action beyond the recommendations, although occasionally it does. So if you could condense your presentation so that the board can get to the matter of voting, all would appreciate it.
And I appreciate that, Mr. Jolly. I'm trying to do the best I can to limit that I can. But there has been, this place, that's the hotel, it's akin to a slumlord. It's a large crack house that Fort Lauderdale commonly shuts down.
Well, no, don't.
It's akin to it. I'm not saying it is
power to shut down commercial properties. So
yes, I understand that.
Okay.
The recommendations from the Fort Lauderdale Police Department are a step in the right direction. The gate is a step in the right direction, but as Mr. Slotnick said, and I, such a close last name, I hope I don't butcher that at all, that those the recommendations of a gate, of an off-duty police officer who's armed, are right things in this right direction. That's some of the things that Judge Levinson yesterday strongly recommended that the hotel employ. And we agree with that. But there's a period of time where that is not going to take place. That is going to be some lag time. And what do we do until there's a gate put up? We are asking, we are asking for the hotel to shut for the Fort Lauderdale to shut this down. We're asking for the nuisance abatement board to take this to shut down. So a kid is not killed. It's inevitable a child will be killed.
I'm not sure I would agree that it's inevitable, but that's not my rule either. But whether it is or isn't, that's just not how this board operates. It doesn't flow. I mean, that would, in my opinion, be a taking, which I would have trouble justifying. But obviously your concerns are of record, and the board will certainly consider that. This is not the last time. As a matter of fact, I know that this is not the last time this property will be before this board, since it comes up every month.
Mr. Jolly, and I appreciate that. I just don't want to see a child on the Channel 7 news who's killed and when we could prevent it. I really don't want to see that. And it almost happened. But so until a gate is employed, until a gate is installed, until the officers are required, the off-duty officers are at the property, we're going to have a risk here of a substantial injury or death to somebody in the community, next to the Pollo Tropical, next to there's not just my residents, but around the surrounding community. I'm asking, if this board is not inclined to shut down the hotel because you believe it'll be a taking, I strongly recommend, and the judge recommended, that off-duty police officers be hired immediately with guns to be able to prevent this from happening. I want to show you a video. If you guys will accept me sharing a video with you to show you the recent activity that happened on the property and a picture.
Mr. Solak, my suggestion is you make a proffer. Make a proffer before the board entertains it. Can you represent what it will reflect?
Yes, I will show that it was a security camera that my client has installed in their property. My client takes the corrective measures. My client is the one that's actually putting security into their property, having surveillance to be able to capture these incidents. This is an incident on August 12th, 2020, where a gunshot took place in the property, which appears to be a drug deal, where there's lots of yelling and screaming and carrying on, where someone rode away in a truck and jumped over my client's, tried to jump over the fence that is adjacent to our property. So that's what it shows.
Mr. Solak, that really isn't disputed. I'm going to recommend to the chair that the proffer be accepted, but the videotape not be introduced. Is there anything else that you wish to say?
Well,
I would like to speak for a moment. I would like to object formally, just to make a record. I object to the showing of the video. We've stipulated to the incident on August 12th, and thank you.
Well,
accepted. Mr. Solak, what else would you like to say?
Well, I would like, if you want to see the pictures, I would appreciate it if I could show the pictures, but if you don't want to see it and you accept my representation as to,
I accept your representation.
fine. Then I have nothing further. I'm just pleading with you to temporarily shut down the hotel, or at the minimum, require off-duty police officers to patrol the property and be there at all times, at least in the parking lots, because otherwise I think we're going to have a real serious problem.
Yeah, let me just interrupt on that one. I'm in the process now of having someone make contact with the hotel to start the detail up, hopefully by the weekend. So we're trying to get that done very, very quickly.
Okay.
But I appreciate your time, Mr. Jolly. I do appreciate
That's
it.
right.
Thank you, Detective.
Now, assuming there is no one else that wishes to be heard, Mr. Foreman, the matter is ripe for a motion. The first motion should be to determine that the property is a nuisance as defined.
Do we have any other comments or questions from anyone in the public? Or statements?
I don't want to prolong this, and I'm sorry. I just have a very brief question for Mr. Colangelo. Is that okay?
Sure, absolutely.
Mr. Colangelo, I know you're on mute. I just had a quick question. I know you represent the business owner. And you know, it's not a lawyer's job to give evidence, but I'm just asking for your opinion. Do you feel that the employees, like the people that maintain the front desk overnight and so forth, I mean, first of all, just a really quick question, is it a 24-hour front desk, and do the people who are actually at the front desk of the hotel, are they empowered to actually regulate the parking lot and the perimeter?
There is a 24-hour front desk. The people who are 24-hour employees are all authorized to kick people off the premises. As Detective Maniotti noted, we have no trespassing signs, and we do kick people off the premises. In addition, there is nighttime security from about 9:30 at night, or as early as 8:30 p.m. till about 5:30 in the morning. And they too are patrolling the grounds and authorized to kick people off the premises. And as Detective Maniotti's also noted, we are currently in the process of working with the City of Fort Lauderdale to put police officers on the premises. And so we are in the process of taking these steps voluntarily.
I do have a question as a follow-up. These security people that you have, are they armed, or are they just authorized to trespass people? Or if it gets really bad, do they call 911?
They are not armed. Our security guards currently are not armed. They are absolutely authorized and encouraged to call 911 to de-escalate the situation, allow the professionals to deal with this. And again, that is why we are working with the City of Fort Lauderdale Police Department to allow the professionals to deal with this, to get a professional on site, to get somebody with a weapon, training to use that weapon on site to protect everybody involved.
And can I ask you one other thing, Mr. Colangelo, in that regard, would actually deeming this to be a nuisance where you're going to get the support and the regulation wouldn't it be actually beneficial to your client because it would be, so there would actually not be an issue with being designated a nuisance? You get the support you need.
100%, absolutely. We've been working with Detective Maniotis before we've been declared a nuisance. We have we appreciate even the sign that says we're subject to the jurisdiction of the nuisance board to allow just another deterrent on site, another sign prominently placed telling guests and visitors that there is an additional layer of security being applied to this place. We believe that will function as a deterrent. The presence and jurisdiction of the Fort Lauderdale Nuisance Board will act as a deterrent, and yes, it will be a great assistance to the hotel.
I'm happy to vote in your favor.
Mr. Jolly, I have one other question for you, and forgive me, I just don't have the rules in front of me. In light of the stipulation from counsel for the property owner that there be that they're retaining a uniformed off-duty officer to help maintain the peace, it is not contained within the formal recommendations before the Nuisance Abatement Board. Is it possible for us to amend those recommendations to include that requirement that a uniformed off-duty officer be retained by the property owner?
I don't have the recommendations in front of me. I thought that was in there.
No, that was not one of the recommendations. This is a recommendation that the director advised that he wanted to put in place.
Okay. If Mr. Colangelo is in agreement, then we can make it is done by way of stipulation. If it is not by way of agreement, then it will have to be unilaterally imposed. And the question is, at that point, it would be a different vote.
I'm not authorized to stipulate to that. We are investigating currently how long that person would be on site, how many people would be on site. Again, I apologize, but I have authority to stipulate to certain items without being able to talk to my client. It's almost 8 p.m. I would not be able to get in touch with them right now. I can't extend the scope of my authority. That's not something that was on the list that was presented to me. And so I'm not prepared to stipulate to that this evening. But as I said, we are working on that. I can represent to the board that we are actively in the process of seeking that. And again, we're working with Detective Maniotis.
Again, I don't have the recommendations in front of me. What paragraph was that?
It is not a paragraph, and that's what I'm trying to say is that.
No, I thought there was a paragraph about retaining law enforcement officers in the recommendations.
No, sir. And that's really my issue is that because it wasn't in the recommendations as listed, I simply wasn't able to speak with my client about it. And so I'm not authorized to stipulate to that. But again, we are working with Detective Maniotis.
Here's how this works. Since that is not a part of the recommendations, again, the first issue to deal with is the determination of nuisance. Assuming that occurs, the second issue is then whether the police recommendations are to be adopted. If there is to be an amendment to those recommendations, that can be done. And you all, based upon the facts that you've heard, can do that. It just will no longer be a stipulated recommendation. So it's however you wish to do it.
Can I speak to Mr. Jolly for 1 second?
Sure.
I will tell you that Judge Levinson yesterday, I think Detective Maniotis can also affirm this, is that Judge Levinson did strongly recommend the hotel to employ that.
Okay.
We are working with Detective Maniotis to do so. We are working with Detective Maniotis to do so.
Correct. That is correct that the judge recommended that. And that is why I got a phone call late yesterday by the regional director asking if I can look into getting a detail for this property. So that is in the works. And I recommend we don't put it in the recommendations at this time. I think we need to do that on the side that we handle this, and then we can deal with this, because this property is going to come in front of the board every month. And if we need to modify, we can do that at that time.
Understood. Thank you.
Experience really does drive how once property is under the jurisdiction of the board, the experience at the property drives what further action, if any, is ever taken.
Sure. Yeah, and Detective, do you know if, or to your knowledge, the nuisance incidences, are they at all between the are the residents of the hotel involved, or the tenants of the hotel involved, or is it strictly people from outside of the property? I don't know if you have that knowledge.
I don't have that knowledge, but I would say that it would definitely be involving the people at the hotel. I mean, this is why they would drive. If they come onto the property, there's a reason why they're coming onto the property. So I would venture to say that, yes. Okay.
I mean, it's implied, obviously, but it just seems like all these preventative measures for people coming on isn't necessarily going to change, the people who are rightfully tenants,
right.
If that's what's happening. Okay, well, I think the first step here, like Mr. Jolly said, is can we get a motion to approve this this property as a nuisance?
A motion to determine that the property is a nuisance as defined.
Yes. Can I get?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and seconded. Do we need to go ahead and do a roll call?
That's my recommendation.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and take a roll call.
I see Mr. Lindsay made the motion.
Correct.
And did Mr. Fanoff second?
I think I actually thirded it.
Okay, Howard Elfman second.
Mr. Alsman, you made the second?
Yes.
Okay, if you could state your name when you do that, because it's not always showing me who's talking. Thank you so much. Okay. Doing the vote. Mr. Lindsay?
Yes.
Mr. Fanoff?
Yes.
Mr. Elfman?
Yes.
Mr. Slotnick?
Yes.
Mr. Foreman?
Yes.
Okay, that is unanimous. Thank you.
The motion passes. Now, the second motion is whether to accept the recommendations as proposed and stipulated to.
This is Joel Slotnick. I would like to make a motion to accept the proposal as written.
Do we have a second?
Howard Elfman second.
Okay, may I call the roll?
Please.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Fanoff?
I just want to be clear because I have it in writing and I'm sorry, it just went over my head. Is the proposal as drafted, because the one point of contention was the actual extra police detail. And I wanted to know, is Detective, is as drafted what your recommendation was?
That's correct.
Okay, yes, then I second, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Elfman?
Yes.
Mr. Slotnick?
Yes.
Mr. Lindsay?
Yes.
And Mr. Foreman?
Yes.
Again, unanimously approved.
All right, that concludes this part of the hearing. That matter is concluded, and that would allow us to move on to board discussion, if any.
I just want to say it was a pleasure to be in front of these two attorneys, and I wish them well in their civil case, and I enjoyed meeting both of you, and I wish you luck.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure meeting all of you as well. And thank you for giving me the time to speak and on behalf of my client and really the community and citizens of Fort Lauderdale.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I want to add one more thing too. I want both of you to know that you call me if you need anything, and we'll work together to try to get this figured out.
Excellent. Excellent.
All right.
Well,
thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you all. When's the next board meeting? Potentially in person?
The last slide tomorrow. Next meeting will be November 12th.
November 12th.
I would just like to ask, next time there is a nuisance abatement hearing concerning this property, me and my client would appreciate if we did get notice. We didn't get notice until last night, I think around like.
Well, for what it's worth, historically, typically, in the absence of there being a specific complainant, and there was no such thing here, that person is not notified. But Mr. Solon, please understand, this matter is going to be coming up for hearing, one of the recommendations, every month for the next year. So you're welcome, encouraged to attend.
Absolutely.
And that will be the second Thursday of every month.
Okay. Understood.
Yes, and you can check the City of Fort Lauderdale calendar for any changes.
I will do.
All right, folks.
Thank you very much.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
And a second?
Second, third, Howard Elfman.
Okay.
No, I don't know who seconded.
Howard.
Howard.
I second.
I thought, who made the motion then?
Joel.
Joel did.
Joel did.
Oh, I'm sorry, you guys.
It's all right. We're working through this.
Thank you.
Hey,
You're doing great.
You guys all did a wonderful job. That was perfect tonight.
Yes, Mr. Foreman, especially, you did great.
He did
Great.
wonderful.
Great job.
And that will be the first matter of business, electing officers next week.
Yes.
Next month.
Next month. Great.
Everybody
All right,
have a
guys.
good month.
All right,
Bye-bye.
folks.